Hey everybody, welcome to Brick Vault. Today we are going to go through the entire 2018 Summer Star Wars wave. It's going to be a basic overview of what these sets really consist of and what we think about them here in the studio, because we do in fact have a full review video on each one which goes a bit more in depth, but I think it's kind of fun to go through an entire wave and do just sort of a total review and let you guys know what we think about the collection as a whole and how these sets compare to themselves. So it's about a third solo sets and then a lot of original trilogy sets plus a little bit of Last Jedi. And I'm basically going to start off with, I think, the set that I want to focus on first, just one that I had a lot of fun with. Here is the X-Wing. So real quick, the X-Wing has a lot of features that I like about it. In general, I would say this is the best shape of the original X-Wing compared to any of the other sets that has come out, definitely, and I think that's something we would expect to have from an updated version, but specifically, I would say I like that we've got this nice sand-colored print here for the windscreen. The pilots both have updated molds for their helmets, which I think kind of goes 50-50 within the community. Some people are not really big fans of the new helmet molds. Personally, I think they do look pretty good. And the X-Wing also comes with a different way to activate the S-foils opening and closing. This one is an interesting action function because it allows you to snap them closed as opposed to something that would slowly twist open or snap open, and you can actually open them up. And then when you rest the X-Wing down, you kind of have to like push it down afterwards, but the S-foils close. Generally, I wouldn't say this is like an improvement based on the last design that we saw from the Resistance X-Wing fighters, but I don't think it's any worse. It's just a different approach, and so LEGO's just kind of having fun playing around with the different ways they can get the S-foils to open and close, which is almost always different. So I would say it's pretty good. I also like the part-to-price ratio on this. This is actually one of the better deals in terms of sets to buy, and probably the best deal if you're looking at a larger Star Wars set out of this entire wave of summer sets. Next up is the Sandcrawler, set number 75220. It has 1,239 parts, making it the highest the highest part count out of any of the sets that came from this wave. It sells for $139.99, which actually makes it, I think, about an expected price for what we get for this set. There's Luke Skywalker, 2 Jawas that recently came out in that Battle Pack set, and then 3 brand new droids. All 3 of the droid minifigs are totally new. I actually really like the detailing for all of them, so they're all pretty good improvements. And then the Sandcrawler build itself. I think in terms of the size that they made it, it actually has some pretty good looks to it, and it's kind of funny. It's a play set. I mean, it rides around pretty well. The treads are the smaller kinds of treads that they've just sort of doubled up on. It has the ability to completely open up, and I mean completely, which is kind of fun, but it feels kind of funny. Just if you were to try to compare this with the Ultimate Collector series Sandcrawler, it's pretty dinky in comparison, and even smaller, I think, than the original Sandcrawler set that came out quite a long time ago, though this one does actually look a lot better than that. I highly recommend you check out the review video for this one, just in case you want to see an even bigger Sandcrawler set. But there you have it for the little playset. Then boom, let's check out the AT Hauler. I wasn't expecting to like this one quite as much as I ended up liking it after I built it and reviewed it. Just the shape of the ship just feels a bit more interesting compared to a lot of the ones that we got from this wave. And if you remember it from the film, it was not a white ship. And actually, that brown was not nearly as prominent as you can see the brown is here. Because not only is it on the bottom, but it goes all the way up the sides of the wings, and it makes up the Technic hooks on the front, which are just a bigger build than what they look like from the ship within universe. So it looks quite a bit different, but ultimately I think it's an actually more interesting looking ship. And what's deceptive about this one is it's mostly Technic on the inside, or pretty much completely Technic on the inside, and I would say the majority of this build is a Technic ship all around. This is a $99 set. It's a $100 set, and it comes with Probably one of the coolest figs here. This is Rio. He's got double arms. That's a brand new mold. I hope we start seeing more of that mold on weird fantasy creatures in the future. I think Val and Kira both are pretty decent figs, though not quite as exciting as maybe some of the other ones. And then the Dryden's guards, surprisingly different expressions for both of them. I wouldn't have expected that, but the molds for their heads are a little bit funny. They kind of have a weird open neck in the back. The ship has the ability to transform, which I like. It's pretty solid. I think the build for the ship is good. The minifigs are good. Well, Rio's good, and then the rest I find okay. But ultimately, I liked the AT hauler for the build that it was. Let's move on to the transport. If you can't tell, I'm knocking out all the sets in the back. So the Imperial Landing Craft, set number 75221. It's got 636 pieces and sells for $89.99, which makes it one of the most expensive sets to get from the collection. I have a feeling some of the more long-term hardcore Star Wars fans were pretty excited to get this particular ship updated, though personally I don't think the update actually looks that good. This is one of the times where I looked at it and said, okay, it's better than the original, but that's not saying much considering I think the original one came out like a decade ago or maybe longer than that. The minifigs included are two very cool sand troopers. One's got the commander pauldron, the other one's got a black pauldron, which I think indicates some other type of rank. Technically, the prints for those guys are not exclusive, though. They're just exclusive combinations of pieces. Obi-Wan's not exclusive, R2 isn't exclusive, and then I can't remember about the Imperial pilot, though he's not a particularly exciting minifigure, so it definitely doesn't fall too strong in terms of figs. I do like the updated sand troopers in general, but the main thing about the build, and the reason why I'm a little bit more critical on it, is the shape that we have for the side hull here. It's just a little bit funny, especially if you start taking a look at what this ship looks like from pictures within universe. That slit in here in the front is very, very eye-catching, especially because the rest of the build around it is so blank and so smooth, so it really draws your eye, and it's just totally inaccurate and really just not related that well to what the ship looks like in universe. So there's one or two things about it. Also, the build that hangs out below the cockpit, especially if I got a lower angle on it, just sticks out in kind of a funny way. So this is an updated ship. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely better than the older version, but that once again isn't saying a lot, just considering LEGO's approach to their updated builds that they've been doing so successfully, so well for so long. I feel like they could have come at this in a slightly different way. It does have a decent internal section, and it transforms open relatively easily, so it's an accessible playset for sure. And if you like this particular ship, especially getting some fun original trilogy ships updated, this might be something that you're interested in. Personally, it didn't grab me quite as much, though. Let's check out now, moving down, the Convex Transport. Technically, that is the Imperial Convex Transport, set number 75217. And it's probably got one of my favorite figs from the entire new wave. This is the Range Trooper. The new mold for the helmet is really great. He's also got a bit of extra fur that goes around the neck there and kind of matches up with the helmet, which is awesome. First time we get a blaster rifle molded in white. There is nothing not to like about this guy. Even the Imperial officer or whatever this guy is supposed to be, he actually looks pretty good too. Chewie gets a print for goggles on his face, so I really like the way the figs turned out for this set. And the train, or the Imperial Convex Transport, this weird magnetic train, it actually has a really good roll function. This is probably the single best approach I've ever seen to treads that roll around. Not only do they grip really, really, really well, they grip really well, they make a great sort of vibrating sound along the table, especially if you're rolling this along a table. It kind of reverberates with this hollow cavity around the tread, so there's just a really, really fun, solid play feature to this. I think if you like rolling sets around, or kids, you know, this is probably the single best one here. The build for the turret is big and bulky and awesome, and you can actually match this up. The other set that I showed off before, the AT hauler, it does have those hooks that can pick up a crate piece from that set, but it also works to pick up the the Convex Transport, at least the back section. Works pretty darn well, so that's cool that if you wanted both to really kind of complete your heist scenario, you could totally do that. And in general, I think this is just kind of a fun shape. Really, this would be awesome if you got two of these sets and sort of had two middle cars and the front and back car sort of matching away from each other. The unfortunate thing about this set, though, is it is $90, $89.99, and the part count is only 622, which makes it the single most expensive part-to-price ratio set out of anything that came from this entire wave. So that is absolutely, if you think price is going to be a factor, this is the single biggest factor in this set for me. I do like a lot of things about it, but you know, that's just something to think about if you are considering other sets from this wave. Now, this next set here is a close second in terms of poor part to price ratio. We've got Snoke's Throne Room, set number 75216. The main draw I think people really had were the Praetorian Guards that you get. You get two of them. They have several different weapons that you can use to fight. And this was, I think, just everybody's favorite scene from the latest Star Wars movie, or at least the latest one from the trilogy. And yeah, so the build for the actual throne room itself is pretty darn good. This is probably one of the best uses of stickers that I've ever seen, which I know is blasphemous in some communities, but I think those stickers actually do look pretty darn good. This is a $69.99 set, and it's only 492 pieces. Pretty much the exact part-to-price ratio as the Imperial Convex Transport set. Slightly better, but hardly by anything. Snoke and Kylo and Rey are all not exclusive to the set, so it really is the Praetorian Guards that you can only get from this set. And if they release another one that has Praetorian Guards, I feel like people might be a little bit miffed, because I think that was a huge draw for people to actually get this particular one. There is one thing about the set that I don't think works particularly great. You can't have a minifigure. You can't have Rey particularly in handcuffs during this little spin around function for the elevator. So I think that kind of stinks, just because it's such a big dedicated part of the build, and you can't get her to look the cinematic way that you wanted to. If she has handcuffs on, she has to stand and sort of balance on that grid piece in the back. You can switch the parts around. It's not a big deal. But anyways, there are some fun little hidden functions in there. I do like that there's some subtle features, like this pull feature in red is pretty well hidden, which allows Rey to get pulled forward. There's a little, kind of activation function to get a guy to go flying across the room, which doesn't stick out too much. So it does have its qualities, but you are going to be paying a hefty price compared to this set. If you wanted to get the X-Wing, you get a lot more pieces, and I think it's the X-Wing, and it looks pretty darn good. And all right, we've moved down to our bottom three, which I like all of. All three of the small sets are really nice. This is the Hoth Medical Chamber set. This is also an updated set like the Imperial Landing Craft. We've got a new version of Luke, who's in the Bacta tank. This is another medical droid that is almost exactly the same as the last one before. He just has dark gray legs as opposed to regular gray. And then this Leia is almost the exact same as the Ultimate Collector Series Leia from the Falcon. They just changed her face to a more standard facial print compared to maybe some of the other Leias that came out somewhat recently. So the body print for that exclusive Leia is no longer exclusive. This is also, they count this as a separate droid. You can take them off and kind of move them around too. So that's another medical droid. In general, though, the build for the medical chamber, it's just an updated version all around. It looks good. I think some of these detailing pieces, I know we saw these macaroni pieces in red being used as detailing from the Lego Batman movie sets. That was a good choice to make them in white. They look really good as sort of outdoor piping, just kind of mechanical piping to make up detailing all around this play area. But it's really good. It manages to be able to fold up quite well, and you can turn it around. Sorry about that. You can turn it around, and it looks pretty darn complete from the outside too. So this is the scene where Luke is now outside of the medical chamber. We've got a nice view window, different colored syringe pieces and stuff. I think this is actually probably one of the better vignette style. Oh my gosh, I keep on hitting the X-Wing. One of the better vignette style builds. The part to price ratio is not that great. It's, let's see, $30 US for a set that is $225, but honestly, that's pretty darn expected for a Star Wars set like this. I would say this is like maybe an average Star Wars set, so this isn't something that really surprises me or I think is unearned, at least from our general expectations that we get. Now let's move on to one of my favorite sets. These are the Cloudwriter Swoop bikes. That's the name of the set, and that's what they are. I just love the shape of the speeder here. They really do remind me of other speeder bikes that we have seen in expanded universe versions of the Star Wars universe. The minifigures are probably some of the better minifigs that we're going to get from Star Wars throughout the year, and this is maybe one of the coolest helmet molds that I think we're going to get from any character for the year. So I'm really, really happy with the way the minifigs turned out because Enfys Nest here is amazing, and Weasel looks really, really good. And I think this also makes Warwick Davis as an actor. His character, I think, has been portrayed more in LEGO as a minifigure maybe than anybody else ever, which is kind of cool. I think he already had that record, and now he's just further ahead. Tobias Beckett also looks good. This is a more recognizable version of the figure. And then we get this other Swoop bike that is a tandem one. It's double. You actually don't have to do very much to it. If you want to get it to split off, you can break these little pieces off, and then you can have two totally different Swoop bikes moving independently from each other. So there's a lot of good building that actually makes up the shape of these bikes. And this is, let's see, this is a 355-piece set, and it sells for $30, making it a very, very good part-to-price ratio. A lot of bang for your buck in that sense. So that's great. It's a small set. I think every aspect that they included on the set works quite well. Even the handlebar function here, getting Enfys Nest in and out of the seat, it just looks cool, and it's really, really functionally fun. So yeah, A+. This is I think my favorite set from the collection. Here's the very last one. This is Anakin's Jedi Starfighter. It's a good update compared to the original. Honestly, the original version of Anakin's Jedi Starfighter that came out was really, really good. This is better, but not by some massive, great, amazing margin. I would say they're actually relatively comparable, so we do get an updated version of Anakin as a pilot, so he's got the headset there. This is R2-D2. He actually came out in two other sets from this wave and several others from previous ones, which I think makes him the most common version of R2 to date. Don't want to say that too quickly. You might get a little bit confused. But anyways, yeah, it's a good version of the Starfighter, and it's relatively cheap. In fact, it is the cheapest in terms of the amount of money you pay for the pieces. This is the cheapest set that you're going to get. It is $19 US, 247 pieces. So you could get like 3 of these sets, and it would still be cheaper than the throne room, and you'd have a lot more pieces. But anyways, it is actually pretty good. And let's check out the entire collection one more time. So often I do think that my favorite sets to come from any particular wave are usually the smaller ones. It's just easier, I think, for smaller sets to feel a little bit more complete based on what they're sort of going for. So I would say the Cloudwriter Swoop bikes were my favorite, even though I wasn't really that into the sets from the Solo movie in general. But I would say for some of them, like the Imperial Transport and maybe 1 or 2 others, it almost felt like LEGO was almost going for a record in terms of how much they could actually charge for a set. In all honesty, though, I know that a lot of people really do like the Snoke's Imperial Throne Room. This is a set that I think was doing quite well. I remember at Comic-Con, people were buying a bunch of them, and it was by far, I think, the most popular Star Wars set there, even though it was very, very expensive compared to other ones. So there's just certain things that people are going to want based on recreating their favorite things from Star Wars. So I can kind of try to analyze or review these sets based on the more logistical factors, but I have a feeling at the end of the day for a lot of you guys, you're just going to be wanting to get this set that you think is the coolest, you know, that reflects the part of the universe that you like the most. So on a personal factor, I always got to go with original trilogy stuff, and this updated X-Wing is good. It's better than the other X-Wings that have come out. It just is. Not like every single feature about it's amazing. I do like the updated helmets. I think they're a little bit more cartoony, and that feels just a little bit more Lego-y. In fact, if you look at maybe the early mold for Chewbacca, that mold is a little bit more accurate to what Chewbacca looked like from the movie, but the updated version is just more cartoony and a little bit more pronounced. And it comes from a creative person at Lego, sort of interpreting the characters that they like. So, anyways, I would say that this wave was fun. There was definitely some really expensive sets, and some of the updates I didn't think were particularly great, but I had a pretty good time building them and playing around with them, and we enjoy them a lot here at the studio. So we've got our opinions here, and I would like to know what your opinions are back home. I have a feeling one or two, or a lot of you guys have maybe one or two, or some of these sets that you're looking at here, and I would like to know what you think about them, which ones you think are your favorite, and what you think about what we think about them, if that makes any sense. So anyways, thanks a lot for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time at Brick Vault. Hey everybody, just popping in very quickly. I'd like to let you guys know we've got ourselves a Lego web store that is www.brickvault.toys, where we sell the PDF step-by-step instructions for some incredibly high quality Lego MOCs. It's absolutely worth checking out. The revenue from the web store helps support us here at the channel, as well as the designers that put these amazing builds together. So anyways, that's www.brickvault.toys. Thanks again for watching, and we will see you next time at Brick Vault.